Hello, folks. Sorry.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, welcome to another ISOOSI Chat, our regular Tuesday roundtable discussion about search, social, and all things marketing. Today we're going to be talking about search engines, SEO tools, and in particular, one of the very best tools out there for link analysis, which is Majestic SEO. And to discuss in and around all those things with our panel, we have a very special guest today, Dixon Jones, who's looking very majestic himself today, out in China. And for members of ISOOSI.com, who are mostly kind of small business owners and other folks watching our broadcast, Dixon is the marketing director of Majestic 12, the creator of Majestic SEO. Like I said, one of the best SEO tools on the planet, and he's the founder of Receptional, an internet marketing consultancy in the UK. And when he's not building amazing tools for us all to use and integrate into Majestic, he's playing chess or mountain biking or generally being one of the smartest guys on the web. And to join him, we have we have Doc as well today, so we have three other of the smartest guys on the web. We have Aman Johns, resident ISOOSI search expert and search marketing consultant for ISOOSI, and we have Bill Slawski, director of search marketing for Go Fish Digital. And we have Doc Sheldon from The Meld and from Intrinsic SEO. So before we get into the nitty-gritty here, how are you doing, Dixon? I know you're fresh off another hangout. How's China treating you?
Well, it's fine. The first thing I've got to say is I didn't create Majestic 12. There's a guy called Alex Janowski. He's a business partner, colleague. He'd already written 500,000 lines of code before I met him, so let's just put that one straight. You know, he doesn't like to get out much. You know, I'm just the guy that knows, you know, who to pimp this stuff to. But yeah, China is dark. It's 3 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh.
You're quite a tall guy, so I imagine most of China seem like small business owners to you.
You do realise that the Chinese authorities are watching and could take you off any time.
We're still proud that we're the only ones that we know of to have a show actually pulled by Google.
Yeah, that was right. One of our first ones. So yeah,
we did one on pay-per-click and they pulled it. We actually gave away maybe a bit too much information.
They were obviously just testing a few things out. Okay.
So yeah, it's great to finally have you, Dixon. And I know you've been on the other hangout, and we all tuned in. We love the guys over there, the Dojo and SEO Pros, David Harry and Terry Van Horn. So we were all tuning in and taking notes, and it's great to see the improvements in the tool. Here at ISOOSI, we've been long-time users of Majestic, love it. We can't say enough good things about it. Amon, I know you feel the same way as well. There's no better tool.
It's the only tool that I regularly recommend.
Thanks, guys.
So yeah, and it's great to see the developments as well in terms of, you know, topical trust flow and citation flow. I mean, I know that those two metrics have been out for a while now, but in terms of the categorization and bringing that in so that, you know, we users can kind of see it as well in the different dashboards it's been tremendous. But you know, before, again, our audience is probably a little bit less down the search marketing path than the Dojo. You know, we've got a pretty wide range of audience, and they tend to be more small business. So before we get into some of the more complexities of it, do you want to just tell us a little bit about the tool and, you know, even sell it? Like, you know, why there's a lot of tools out there, and you know, we love Mars.
Who's it for?
Raven, but you know, what sets yours apart, and why should small business owners, you know, choose Majestic?
Yeah. Okay, so I think that one thing to say is that Majestic is not so much a tool as it is a data source, and so we're crawling the web just like Google does. And we do it. We're one of the top 10 web crawlers in the world. So if you look at your log files, so if you get an example of that, Twitter has reported around about 500 million, half a billion tweets a day, and in the same 24-hour period, typically we'll see another 2 billion 4 times as many URLs as there are tweets on the planet. So it gives you an idea of the scale that we're doing. But instead of keeping all the on-page data, what we're doing is keeping the link relationships between all of the web pages. And that creates a really interesting map. And because we can do some pretty fancy maths on that map, we can correlate trust, citation, authority, however you want to call it, and then we can categorize that now as well, so that we can put a lot more meaning to a web page than just what's on the page. In fact, we don't put any meaning to what's on the page at all, and even without that, we've come up with a search engine effectively, which you could use. You could use our stuff as a search engine, which is not a bad search engine, even though it's no on-page information whatsoever. And it's not about the number of links into a website, it's a strength and proximity to other authority sites, and that's not just one link away, but it could be 1, 2, 3, 4 links away. So the BBC history page could link to Alan Johns, who could link to Bill, and Bill could link to a small business website, and the chances are there would be some element of history, because the history page on the BBC is very powerful, and we know it's about history, that will flow through to your site as a result of that somewhere along the line. Whether it's enough to register on our dial is another question. So hopefully if I get a chance to show you a few bits, show your users a few bits, you get the idea of that. But pretty much we can see any URL in context, and a URL could be a person, a web page, a website, web domain. Well, a URL is obviously not a domain, but technically you get my drift, and we can evaluate them. So it's used by link builders, by reputation managers, by PR people to try and work out who's authoritative around a keyword, a niche, an aspect of business, and then use that for developing relationships, which to the SEO industry means developing links.
So it's a great tool for link builders and link cleanup folks. So you've pretty got everybody covered. Link builders, well, and then in terms of link cleanup, again, it's one of the best sources of find out who's linking to your website. And through the last few Hangouts as well, one of the other things that this new developments have brought into play is looking at ways that it can help you figure out who are the the influencers in your area, which is great for content content marketing. But sorry, you were about to say, Dixon?
No, I was going to. I've forgotten what I was going to say there. But except that even if we don't have the data, you can bulk upload it as well. So I think one of the reasons that we're good for the disavow stuff is because it's so large. We've also got this other historical index that goes back 5 or 6 years, and what is Evan smoking?
That people have asked that question for years.
But you can bulk upload, so you could take all the backlink data that Google has, for example, and upload it, and then over the next couple of days we'd verify that and stuff, and give trust and flow metrics to all of those as well, or for any other data sources as well that you may have. So we can get a pretty complete set of your information. Sorry, I'll let you go back, Carlos. What were you saying?
Yeah, no, it's just to go down that path a little bit, just something that I've wondered myself. So if you do the bulk upload, do you use that data then as almost a new data source to then start pinging out from all those URLs and start indexing in those if they weren't already in your index?
Yeah, we call it a bulk URL submitter. So what it does is it doesn't guarantee that we're going to go and look at all of those URLs, but it helps our web crawler change its priority as to what it's going to crawl. So we can get through around about 2 billion web pages a day, URLs a day. Well, actually, we get through more than that, because that's new URLs a day, so ones that we haven't seen over a 90-day cycle. So actually, we're crawling a lot more than that. But if there's new URLs in there that we haven't seen before, then that's a signal for us to go and try them. But if you sit there and try and put up 100,000 URLs and the first 20,000 don't seem to be going anywhere, we'll probably abandon the list. I'm not quite sure how the logic works there. but clearly we have to make sure it can deal with scale. So it doesn't guarantee that we're going to crawl everything, but the chances are that we will go and get, if it's a genuine list, we'll get that and put that into the index over the next 72 hours or so. So it's not instant. It'll take a while.
Cool. I mean, one of the fascinating things that, I mean, you know, we've been long time users and followers of yourself, and I think, you know, one of the reasons that I'm on, and I mean, we've talked about it together about why we like Majestic. It's kind of like you had all this built in the plan, and you know, you've got tremendous SEO knowledge, whereas, you know, some people on the other tools, either that knowledge isn't kind of, you know, it just doesn't come out as much or whatever. But it's great to see how the tool's developed, and you know, in terms of the data that you do collect, though, you know, you said there's no on-page stuff. What about like meta descriptions and stuff like that? I know you're bringing the title tags, obviously, but are you bringing anything else?
Well, we're bringing the title tags, the URL itself. That's not to say we're not going to bring other stuff in the future, but there's an interesting critical path when you're crawling that amount of data. We use a distributed crawl, so that means that we're crawling from hundreds of locations around the world, which gives us a scale because it means that we can crawl from lots and lots of places. But I did a back of a cigarette packet calculation the other week. If we were to keep, so obviously we have to go through all that HTML to pull out the links. So theoretically, at some point in this process, we've seen all the on-page data, but that's on a local machine somewhere in Shanghai or wherever it may be. And at that point, we do some stripping of the data there, and then we send the information back to Birmingham, offices in Birmingham, or to our data centers and in the UK for further analysis and to analyze the whole set. To take all that information back, if we were to take the raw HTML back, I worked out that that would probably involve a bandwidth issue of importing equivalent of 6,500 hours worth of HD video a day into our data center, which I suspect would give us a bandwidth issue and would probably break something somewhere. So it's an interesting challenge to bring more data in. So it's a serious consideration. It's not to say that,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love talking about things like this. It's just, you know, and sorry to digress, but, you know, I started building a crawler, you know, years ago, and for me, what's that?
Yeah, and scale becomes a problem when you get that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just before in the green room, you know, because we bring down what we do is bring down just textual content and then truncate it after, you know, X number of characters. But then we do pass through that to look at keywords in that. I mean, so we're bringing down meta descriptions, page titles, but just that process of, okay, you know, going through the HTML and only bringing down the bits that you want. I mean, we've only got, you know, it's minuscule compared to what you're dealing with. I think we've got like 6 million links in our directory system.
That's something I'd really like to cover, actually, because I think it's still one of the areas I see even SEOs get massively wrong, is not understanding just how complex crawling alone is. I mean, let's say you've got 200 billion URLs, which is entirely possible. Certainly 20 billion is not that big an index these days. Okay, you could probably just about generate that from Facebook alone. So you've got 20 billion URLs and you've got a fixed number of seconds in a month. So just to crawl each URL once, you've got to be grabbing so many per second.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's nowhere near enough to be indexing Twitter or even Facebook statuses, or certainly not news sites where you need that news to be grabbed once an hour, really. You know, it's no good having the latest headlines from the BBC this morning. I need them an hour ago, or I'm not going to have news search. So, you know, you look at all these kind of things. How do you deal with prioritizing the crawl, Dixon? That is something I think people would really love to know.
Well, Okay, I don't want to go into too much detail on it, mostly because I'm not bright enough. But that said, what flow metrics have really helped us do that. So we used to use our old metric, AC rank, to help us prioritize the crawl. But now we have flow metrics. We can see not topical trust flow, but just normal citation flow and trust flow. We can see how important a web page is, and that will affect, that will be one serious signal as to how many times we should go and visit that page, but also information about how often that site and that page is changing, and how much it's changing is important as well. So we can be seeing important sites, important pages, we're crawling every hour. Because the BBC is going to be updating every few minutes and stuff, and I can't go every few minutes because BBC would just get bored of me. But we would go and have a look at pages up to that kind of level. Most pages we go and see most weeks. And if it's a page or a page that changes on a regular basis, we'll probably see it most days. So the home pages of WordPress blogs we tend to see a lot more than inner pages, in part because we know that it's more likely to update than the inner page. Once the page is there, it's evergreen. Whereas we don't really need to go and see it all the time. That said, we still want to try and go back to it, and especially if it's an important page, we want to check it. So we'll record the date we first saw it and the date we last saw it as well.
How much of a crawl is done? How much of the crawl is done from the URL index that you've already got, the list of URLs that have got to be crawled, and how much is done by crawling links from link to link as the crawler's going? Do you have both kinds of crawls going on, or do you mostly use one or the other?
It's to my head, that's the same list. It's just it's because what we do is we give a batch of URLs to a bot. So our bots are distributed around the world, and it's partners in the project that collect the data. So we will give them a batch of URLs, and then those batch of URLs will go and crawl, and then we'll continue to crawl down that list to a certain point, of which it's not that I haven't got the capacity. I just haven't gone and sat down and worked out where it goes. That's Alex's part of the ship, but that sort of batch, if you like, will go to a certain point, and then at some point it will just deliver that data back to the controller. So that will include new URLs. It will include repeat URLs that got there, even though by random. So we then obviously probably wouldn't put it into another batch of URLs to go and crawl and stuff. So it's the lists are set from our existing data, but the new discovery comes as a result of sending out batches to the distributed bots. But it's that distribution.
What I'm trying to get at is I still think a lot of SEOs and webmasters think that if number 5 link that's in your list that you've sent to the bot is to their homepage, and your bot finds a link, that it's going to go straight to their site again for number 6 instead of to your list for number 6.
No, it doesn't have to do that, because what it does at that point is we find the link that's on that page, and then we bring that back into our data set, and so we know it's there, but we haven't crawled it yet. Now, if we get more signals about that URL from other places that say, right, okay, this other page has found this page too. Now I've got 2 different distinct websites, or 3 different distinct websites that are linking to this URL already. Without even crawling the URL, we have information about the URL, and so. But that would be a signal saying, right, go and find out, go and see why this is an important URL, because it's clearly more.
Prioritize it, yeah.
Yeah. So that discovery helps to prioritize it.
Yeah.
Do you rely solely upon crawling, or do you use XML sitemaps as well?
Right now we're a link crawler, primarily crawl. I mean, you can upload the URLs, and that helps us for discovery, and we can look at other ways in which we would do this discovery. And I'm kind of interested in doing that, because Google does it and stuff, and it saves on bandwidth. But the problem is people lie. I bet you. There's some idiot up there that's just putting up, loads and loads of URLs to our URL submitter right now in batches of 100,000, thinking that it's going to do something. Of course it's not, but people will still try. So we can't just assume people tell us the truth.
We've got one question from the audience I think ties back to what Carlos was asking earlier, but I'll bring it in at the moment. And it's Christopher Vogelman. He's asking, why would a small business owner pay a monthly subscription for Majestic?
Okay, so three things, really. The first is, Chris, it's a freemium model, so you don't actually have to pay us anything to get your own data. We give everybody their own website data for free, and you have to verify your site. So you can go in, log in, and you verify in different ways. You can either verify it with putting a text file up, you can use meta tag, or you can connect your Google Webmaster Tool authorization. And if we can go do effectively OAuth with Google Webmaster Tools, then we'll assume that you are in control of the sites that Google says you're in control of, and we'll give you that information. So that's a quick way. If you've got 100 sites, you could actually get data on all 100 sites that way very quickly. So we will give you, and we'll give you all your data. So if you've got 10 million links, then you do an advanced report. You can have all 10 million links. So Google will only give you 100,000. So right there, that's a reason for using it. Why you would pay comes to the second point, or rather the third point. Is it's only $50, and you could cancel from month to month, but you start to lose some of the intrinsic value of the tracking information over time. So it's $50 or 30 quid. So it's not not thousands of pounds. The value comes in how you use it. If you're not going to use it, then it's probably best to leave it with your SEO company and let them use it, and they'll have an account, and they'll be using it for a lot of people and working on it. But where you can get real value out of it is finding influencers and influential pages that should be talking about your business and therefore should be linking to your business, if only they knew that you were there. So it's really for discovering. The positive aspect of using Majestic is for discovering people and pages and websites that are influential around your topic of interest and your speciality. And also at the same time, avoiding the rubbish, avoiding the junk. So knowing how influential little web pages is pretty useful. And maybe if we go through a demo, if we've got time, then hopefully I'll bring out a couple of examples. The example I've actually got is let's say you were trying to lobby Parliament for a health issue, for example, and you needed to know which politicians might be interested in your issue, then you could use that. Is that link building? Yeah, I'd say it was, but in the Ammon Johns sense of the word, I'd say it is. Is it? If you want to do it for pure link building as well, and just sit there and say, right, I'm going to go and have a look at the top 100 pages that rank for my keyword here. I'll pull that data out from using some other system because we don't scrape Google, and that gives me a bunch of links. Right, now I want to go and find out who links to all of my competitors, but not to me, for example. You can do that with Majestic. So you can really find out why it is that there is influence, why your competitors are perceived to have influence, even though we're not using Google's data per se, we're using our own data. We're working out why one website or web page has influence in a particular keyword or vertical compared to another. Does that answer a question?
I was going to jump in there with something, but you just touched on it already, and I see that one of the comments, Tim Sweeney also mentioned that the competitive aspect of it is just fantastic, because now you can look at your competitors and you can see what their authority is based upon and where they're strong, and go after it.
Yeah. And
I think that'd be a really good time, Dixon, to actually pull up the tool, do a little bit of a screen share, and talk us through an example or two.
Well, let me just take an interesting example that wasn't brought up in the previous session, so we got something nice and new. Firstly, I've got to share my screen. Hang on a second. How do I share my screen? Here we go. You see, I can do this.
Okay.
Right. Can you tell me when you can see my screen?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Got me. Right. So if I go to Majestic's homepage, and hopefully this site's logged in. So this is a silver account. So this will be a £30 a month account. So you can get an idea. So what I've just put into my clipboard here is actually John Muller's Google Plus profile. That's John Muller's Google URL, so when I press the search button, what it's going to do is it's going to have a look at all of the people that are linking to John Muller's profile, which is in itself interesting. But what it also does is it works out the context in which they're all linking. So if I just go quickly through this page, I'll come back to what this does now, this topical trust flow, in a second. But these two numbers here, it says that his page is worth trust flow of 24 out of 100, and citation flow, which is citation flow is like the link juice associated with links to his URL, and it's a logarithmic score between 0 and 100. Trust flow is, if you like, the authority of those links between 0 and 100, again a logarithmic scale. So in the 20s for an individual URL on Google, that's pretty good. And he's got that from just 139 referring domains, and then we can go down here and see what we've seen of all this information, and then we've got a whole load of other links along here that allows us to dig in. But we can see. Sorry, someone want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just in terms of that trust flow, Dixon.
Yep.
How many sources? Like, how are you? Is that, and without going into too much detail, because I've got my notepad out. How many kind of sources go into that trust flow, and are you adding on to that each month and kind of building that trust source index, if you will? Like,
so, well, everything. So every one of these URLs, or every one of these,
like Google's, it's citation based, isn't it?
Yeah. And so every single one of these URLs will have its own individual trust flow. So we've got blog spots and things down here, but actually our data is done at the URL level. So if I go to the actual backlinks to John Muller's posts, each of these individual links has their own trust flow and citation flow. So Google Webmaster Central.blogspot.com we know has itself a trust flow of 62, and what's more, we also know how that's broken down. So we know that Webmaster Central is about internet and searching, is about internet web development, etc., etc.
Again, just for viewers, as soon as your crawler goes out and finds the information, puts it into the database, it's assessing. I think I heard you before saying like one of 800 category scores.
Yeah.
And then giving them a trust metric and a citation and a flow metric based on your algorithms for each one of those categories.
That's right. So actually, and this updates every day. So it's actually something like about 800 categories at the moment. So these are the categories. So computers, internet, and searching, and you can go along here, and we've John Muller is pretty targeted in what he's about. It's all red, which means computers, and it's all www and stuff like that. And internet chat. We've even picked up that he's influential as an internet chatter.
So kittens isn't on there.
No, but if we put Matt Cutts in there, it might be. So animals might be in there. So, but yes, so that's a calculation which is updated most days. And so if you do the, on our website, we've got, let's have a look at the home page, however many URLs in here. It's got total URLs found, 704 billion. So around about 200 billion that we've crawled, but 704 billion that we've found. Times that by 800 categories, we're doing trust flow calculations for 800 times 704 billion a day. So, do that maths. It's quite a lot. So yeah. Okay. I think well, I'll just quickly go through these tabs. You can get a lot more data if you click this button here, by the way. There's a lot of people sit there and say, I can't get the data out, it's too difficult. If you press that button there, it'll give you all, in this case, 3,488 links. But if you really wanted it and you were up to the mark and you had enough allowance, you could sit there and say, right, I want everything on plus.google.com at the subdomain level, for example, which is 4.5 billion. Now there we might stop you at 4.5 billion, but you know, if it's in the millions, that's not a problem. We'll sit there and give you all that data if you can cope with it on your computer. But your computer will blow up after around about, you know, somewhere between 100,000 and a million URLs. You can also get advanced reports here as well, or verify your domain if you're on a free account. And then,
nice to see that Plus Google isn't spammy, because I can see its citation flow is about equal to its trust flow.
Well, yeah, well, it is at the moment. Yeah, just wait until people figure out how to spam it. You know.
Yeah, I don't know if you touched on that in the last hangout, Dixon, but just again for our viewers, do you mind just quickly going over the citation and trust flow? Like, from my understanding, if something like the citation is like the link juice, trust is obviously the trust. So if you have like a citation of 50, but your trust flow is like 5. Obviously, you've got a ton of links coming to you that are pretty, you know, low authority, and that's a bad sign. Really, if everything was equal, they should be about even. I've seen a few examples where the citation, where the trust flow is actually higher than the citation.
Yeah, well, yeah, there certainly are examples where trust flow is higher than citation. So this represents the link profile. I know it's a bit of a big thing to look at, but maybe we should just go for something a little more. Should we go for ISOOSI? ISOOSI. I'll do it.
No, that's the no, it's ISOOSI.
Sorry. Okay, what am I doing? ISOOSI.com.
ISOOSI.com. Yeah.
Again, bear in mind what I told you before in terms of its changing its categorization.
Yep.
That,
no, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. But this will demonstrate hopefully a little bit about citation flow and trust flow. So citation flow and trust flow, we treat citation flow as a flow of the link equity of every URL through multiple iterations. So page A can link to page B, can link to page C, can link to page D, and some love from page A will come all the way through to page D and beyond. But it's in a sort of decreasing value. And because we've got an absolute number for every for the number of referring domains for every website and every URL, we start with an absolute number for every page on the internet. With trust flow, we do exactly the same maths, but we start with a trusted seed set of hundreds of thousands of URLs of domains that we know are trusted. And what we mean by trusted is we know they were built by human beings, not by machines. They were lovingly crafted, really. They don't have to be busy, they don't have to be big sites, but we know they're lovingly crafted. And we then flow that data. So and it kind of works out that it's a bit like 6 degrees of freedom. You know everybody on the planet within 6 degrees. I probably know it within 3 now. It's the same on the internet, really. We will get to almost every page on the internet within 4 or 5 links. I'm sure, because unless a page has no links coming into it at all, or has links coming in that have no relationship to that trusted seed set. So that means that we can now build up a picture of trust as associated to citation flow. So trust flow and citation flow, if you were building your links naturally, would naturally come to the same number at scale. On very small numbers, they could be miles out, but at scale, they should be the same number. Where citation flow ends up a lot higher than trust flow, the chances are that you've manipulated your website, or rather, links have become generated programmatically as opposed to naturally. And a good example.
Or you were a web agency that did site-wide links on the foot of, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was practices that weren't done really. Well, I guess you could have said they were manipulative. The fact that everybody was doing them in 2001 and 2002.
I think that they obviously can affect something. Site-wide links can affect something, but we tend to work on referring domain counts as our starting points anyway. So we sort of assume that it's not necessarily a problem if you've got 1 million links from one website as opposed to 2 links from the homepage. But the value won't increase from the 2 links really, because it's more about the number of referring domains and then flowing from there. But it will get diluted if you've got too many site-wide. But what tends to happen is when it's badges and that sort of thing, that can bring it up. And there's other ways that it can happen as well. So a really good example of a disastrous citation flow is it's important that you understand or go and find out what
you missed your T.
Oh yeah, I missed the T. Yeah.
Mr. T, excellent. I pity the fool who misspells his own domain.
Interestingly, I did notice I had some trust flow from MajesticSEO, MajesticSEO.com there, which means there are links for that mistypo of the spelling domain that I could go and reclaim. So that's something probably I should do. But this is a really interesting example and a really unusual one. So we've got a trust flow of 39 and a citation flow of 87. That, in a normal situation, is disastrous. But you still have to go and work out why it's disastrous. And it turns out that what we have is a number of black hat sites. I'm going to call them black hat sites, but a few very busy sites that don't want us to see their links because they're probably selling the data, selling the links, and they don't want it to show up in Majestic's data. And that's fine, but what they do that's quite interesting is that instead of blocking our bot and saying don't come here, they're throw-running our bot to our homepage. So all this junk, dubious traffic is kind of, and the flow, the citation flow, is flowing straight through. So it's easy for us to fix if we want to, but you know what? We tend not to want to. We want to know, but it's important that
this is a great signal on other domains, isn't it?
Yeah, work out why. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still got the data really accurate. Majestic is about, hey, distributed computing. That's brilliant. Online training, well, computer software, online training, web design and development. I think that's a pretty good mix of what we've got. So I've really come to the decision that trust flow and topical trust flow is just a brilliant methodology for working out what a site's about, what a web page is about. Citation flow is an interesting methodology to work out whether your site is likely to be getting spammy links.
What's the categorization like for things that are very broad these days? I mean, one of the first that probably comes to my mind is eBay or Amazon, where they sell almost everything.
It does become quite a lot broader. Here you can see, these colors are important. So we can see that 30, 29, 28, they're all red, which means computers. And these categories are worked out independently. So you can't compare computers and internet with regional Europe, for example. They're completely separate calculations. So don't compare them against each other. But we have tried to show you how influential each of these categories are in the greater scheme of things in this chart here. And so you would expect to see that the top trust flow is either very closely aligned, as this one is, or dominates. And when you get to something quite broad, I can have a look at eBay. It's probably not a bad one actually, given the time. We do firstly get it right. I mean, it's about auctions, and that's it. And so it's only after we've made that decision that it's
actually 85.
Yeah, so it's clearly about auction, shopping auction sites. It dominates that category. But after that, you're right, it gets very broad. So you'll see that there's a lot more categories being shown here with quite high trust flows across a whole different set of categories. and we stop after however many that is. So if you're still up in 31, there's loads more. But in terms of the overall impression, we know it's there. What's probably an interesting one is something like blogspot.com, because there the content of all of the individual blogs is likely to be much more random. We've decided that it's about society and people, which isn't bad, but actually these are all quite similar sorts of numbers. And here we find very little evidence that one category is standing out. So there's no big primary trust flow, as we call it, at the top. So actually, Blogspot is a very good example of one that's very broad. And so it is that Blogspot, we know, is very powerful, 92 out of 100 as a domain, but because it's split into so many different categories and stuff, that doesn't necessarily mean that your individual sites or pages are going to do well, because that juice doesn't flow to all your individual Blogspot pages, but B, the content is so broad. So yeah, that's a good example.
You know how you said you kind of took the structure of demos as a kind of a starting point. It's kind of like what we did back in the day, and we used a Yahoo directory as a kind of a grid. Are you looking at like authority directories and seeing if like a particular website is in certain authority directories and then giving them increased topical? In other words, I know there's certain ones that definitely stand out.
That ties back to the handmade quality sites of the trust rank thing. I don't think Dixon wants to give you a list of all of those so that people can speak them. But yeah, well, I think that's going into the hand-built.
I'll tell you this. Now that we have topical trust flow for all the URLs, it's maybe too late to get into your list, if you see what I mean. So it's now developed a little bit of a life of its own, and I don't have to go back and check my original list ever. Well, I reckon that our list is self-improving, not self-decaying. We could always go back to the original list. If we suddenly do something really stupid with our algorithm, we could go back and have a look again, I suppose. But I think that topical trust flow now is metamorphosizing day by day, and hopefully we're getting more accurate. We will start changing our categories around. A really good example is at the moment we don't have any categories for adult sites, so if you put an adult site into our system, it'll get all the trust and all the other bits and pieces, but it won't get context. It won't say it's all about porn, because we have no category for porn. I think that we will try and do that at some point. I'm not going to put them in. I'm in China. Someone's watching. I'm not going to do it. But that's another reason for getting a paid account. You could go and see for yourself. But I think that would be sensible to do at some point. And also, we can improve the categories. We had some issues with regionalization. Is Domino's pizza, should we have Domino's pizza in Europe, or should it be in the US, or whereas on a typical search on Google, it's all decided that pizza is local results. We're not going to get down to that level of locality, and so we don't necessarily want to regionalize it at all. So, but then again, the European Union, should that be in the regional category, or should it be in the government category? So there's some interesting places when we start, and I think we can improve on the categories. But we were so pleased when we came out with our first pass that we went live, because we were actually gobsmacked.
And then Matt gave you a gift, of course, as well, by announcing that Google was doing topical, talking about topical at the same time.
If anybody hasn't seen it, then they should absolutely. If they think that this stuff is maybe not there, because somebody can maybe get the topical PageRank video up topical. I'll try and get the URL.
I got a question for you, Dixon. Since it's obvious that this didn't it didn't come to you overnight. I'm sure you've been planning a lot of this for the years. Do you have any plans for allowing your users to specify for localization?
Yeah. So we've got a number of things that we've got planned. Some which I can talk about, some which I can't, some which we haven't thought about yet. The first thing is you could already say, right, just give me the links that come from the UK, for example. Or you could choose to filter your links by country. But what we've also got, and I haven't shown people, is our search engine. So we have plans to give the links by country some kind of weighting, so that we've got some kind of logic. If you put in cheap flights as a search term, for example, right now you get cheapflights.com coming up as number 1, cheapflights.co.uk coming up as number 2. In a proper search engine, you'd probably want to sit there and say, well, one of those is appropriate for one person and one of them is appropriate for another person. So we probably only need one, depending on where you are. So we can do some stuff like that, which I think we're going to do. But the other side of it, of saying, right, give me all the links that are in the UK that are associated with this category, that's a wholly different proposition. It's one that we can do, but we can't do cheap. And we also can't do it a lot either. So it's an expensive proposition, but it's a lot less expensive than going and crawling the web yourself and finding out yourself. So we do have plans to provide, mostly to our enterprise customers, to people that have bought the whole caboodle, the ability to sit there and say, right, I want an extraction of Majestic's data in this way, shape, or form. But
I'm thinking of, for instance, I've got a pizza parlor in San Diego, California, and I want to look and see what's happening with my competitors in San Diego, California. So that's not on the table at this point, or on the board, I would gather.
Well, no, actually, that is. We're not in San Diego. We don't do it by city because we're a worldwide outfit, and there's an awful lot of cities. So I'm in Shanghai right now. But you could what you can very easily do is you can take a search from, or you either know your competitors, and therefore you can do a bulk backlink checker of your competitors, or what we call a click hunter report of your competitors, and they could be regional, or they could be in a business vertical, but it really starts to show the association. So is it okay if I go and show you bulk backlink checker? I think it's a pretty good thing.
After that, could you just quickly run us through how somebody would use the tool for PR to find topical authorities and local authorities? Just quickly.
I can do both in the same example because
Perfect.
I'm that
Excellent.
right. So what I'm going to do then is you can see my screen again?
Yeah.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do, before I started here, I actually took a set of sites. So this is actually all of the subdomains from senate.gov of all the senators in the Senate, so to speak. So if I take that list. But this list could just as easily be, I haven't got them all here, I have to take that. But this list could just as easily be all the people that rank in the top 10 for choose keyword here, or all of my competitors in Seattle that do this. So it can be any kind of difference there. And we've got a couple of different tools. The first one that I'll show you is our bulk backlink checker tool, because it can deal with lots of sites. So what we can do is cut and paste the whole list. Or if you want to do this, you can put up to 150 in on a silver account. I think you can go up to 400 on a gold, platinum account, or you can upload a file. And an upload file you can put up to 100,000 URLs, and then you get a file back with all this data. But let me show you what happens when we put all these senators in here. So now what we're doing is we're comparing a whole bunch of websites, web pages side by side, and typically you'd want to keep them either as all root domains or all subdomains or all URLs if you can, so that you don't compare a subdomain with a URL. But these should all be subdomains. Maybe not that one. Let's just delete that one. I might have made a error on that one, and check them all out. So now I can compare all these senators. So the PR example implementation of this is if you wanted to go and find, you know a bunch of people and you know their websites or their Twitter profiles or whatever it may be, and you want to know which ones are going to be interesting in your category or in your profile. Well, here they come back right next to each other with all the different categories associated with them. So if I was if I was Bill Gates or Sergey or myself and I wanted to lobby government
I was going to say, hold this screen for a minute because Google want to add this to their lobbying campaign.
Yeah, they probably should. I suspect that, blunt.senate.gov, so that's who Senator Blunt is probably good. Coons, these guys, we can sit there and say, right, these guys are all interested in computers, and we can sit there and go and see what area of computers they're interested in. So, of course, they've got, so he's still not in his top, it's not in his top 10, because, of course, all of these are senators, so their primary trust flows are things like society and government, which hopefully they all are. But somewhere along the line, this guy is still influential in computers.
Can you sort by those columns, Dixon? Can you sort by the column?
You'd hope, wouldn't you?
No,
what you have is this magic button here called download data,
all right,
and then there's this thing called exit. So that's what I do.
But that's great. That actually allows us to work with it any way we want then. Which
yeah, absolutely.
It's one of the things I really love about this tool, Dixon. It's one of the things that really struck me is a lot of the tools try and lock people in. They don't want people being able to export data and use other tools, and they don't want to import data. And your tool is just so open, and it's so obvious that you've come at this from somebody who has used tools. And it always strikes me you built the tool you'd want to use.
We made some errors along at the start for sure, and I think that we mostly learned from them, and I think we've got it okay now. But yeah, we certainly see that we want to be custodians of the data. That's our job, and we would hope that other potentially very big organizations will build value added stuff on top of our data, and that's our wish. I can't build everything. I say again. There's a development team and a marketing team. I'm the marketing pimp. I didn't develop any of this, but I can, at least with my SEO background, help direct people and say this is what people are interested in. This is what's going to be useful. Let's not go down that route because, frankly, it's a cul-de-sac. And so I hope that our data is doing that. You can export it, you can use it, and you can import as well. We like people importing URLs into our system or verifying sites and stuff because it helps give us credibility, and we give something back when you do that by allowing you to have your own data for free. There's one other thing that you can do. Imagine that that you were sitting there. Let's say that these were 10 URLs that ranked for a particular phrase in Google instead. This tool called Click Hunter, which I haven't played with for a while, will go and show, and it plays to your pizza analogy or your Seattle analogy, Doc. It'll show all the websites that are linking to 2 or more of these individual web pages, or in this case, subdomains. So if I press the hunt here, we can go and see sets of pages. And I can go for 3,000. If you want to go up to 25,000, you can on the Platinum plan, but I can go up to 3,000 here. And so now I'm seeing all the web pages that are linking to more than one of these senators' URLs. So I can see that US Cities Home is linking to all of these guys. In fact, a lot of these are linking to all of these guys. And eventually, when I get to somewhere, hopefully, someone's ignored a few of these senators, but it would appear that they're linking to all the senators' sites. Here we go. So GMO regions, for example, or fedmanager.com is linking to this senator and this senator. So these two guys are probably going to have some trust in the financial field, because Fed Manager is linking to them, assuming Fed means Federal Reserve, might not, but not these. So if you wanted to be a senator that was influential, or if you wanted to rank, then you would be looking at finding people that are linking to more than one of your competitors, and trying to build up a relationship with them.
I want to know what
Farfnoogletron.
What was that website?
What? Who?
There's that website, the website at the bottom of the list.
Farfnoogletron?
Let's go find out. So they are about.
I agree with Christopher Vogelman. You know, it is a great job title there.
So how come I haven't got?
Oh, it's about me.
I'll tell you what. This is quite interesting. This is an interesting site because we've not picked up any information about what they're about. And the reason we haven't is they've got a 19 citation flow. So we know there's lots of links to them, but none from anywhere that we can trust. So I'm betting you when we go to this website, it is quite obviously a spammer. Yeah. Shall we try?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go find out. I think it's probably as spammy as you're going to get, really. So yeah, it's an automated.
Well, so one of the things that we were trying, and Amon and I, before we got on air after watching the other hangout, was, you know, we typed in Amon's Twitter profile URL. So, you know, you don't have to do it just on the domains, folks. You can do it on the, you know, the URLs, and we typed in Amon's and then mine,
yep,
or, you know, the ISOOSI one. So making sure that the capitalized A and capitalized J. And so, are you, when you are pulling that in, are you like all the Twitter profiles or the people that are linking to Amon, obviously, have got a trust flow, and that all works into that. So you know, it really is a fantastic tool in terms of, you know, finding out influencers.
So if you're going to do that, so what I tend to do is I put the get the Twitter profile up in Google, because Google has correctly worked out where the capitalization should be, and so I tend to use that, or I go and have a look at their Twitter profile itself. But it's important to get this capitalization right for Twitter.
Yeah,
then when
I'm not awkward like the gypsy.
No, yeah, that's true. You also want to make sure it's at the URL level, but anyway, most times we default to the URL level, which is why some people think we've got less links than we actually have. And something has gone wrong. And I'll tell you, I don't know why that's gone wrong.
No, it was working earlier.
We got there. There we go. It's all right. It was a quick fix. It's not so bad. So we know, and this is a really good way for finding influencers. So we know that, Amon, you've got a trust flow of 20 out of 100, but this is logarithmic, so 20 is not is no mean feat, was no easy feat. But most importantly, we know where you're influential in. There's no point in us trying to get you to change society, to change the law, because you have no law experience. You've no influence in government or society, frankly, Amon. You've only got influence in web design development, internet searching.
About there,
So
talk about SEO or to tease Pete Myers. So, you know, other than that.
Absolutely.
So for those folks who are always
here, no doubt, you know. But
again, though,
this is one where the trust flow is higher than the citation flow.
They're about the same, so this is normal.
Yeah. And again, of course, you would see more if you did have a category for porn there.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I don't talk about it on Twitter. You've already lost Eric Stafford, apparently. He told us earlier that basically you lost him when you said there wasn't a category for porn.
Yeah, okay. We are coming in and working in on that, but we just don't want to ram it
Eric
down.
will volunteer to help build that category out.
Yeah, if you
Say
need any
that again?
research, yeah.
Okay.
So for those folks who are always chasing followers or I mean, if there is anybody still left who does that, you know, Amon has got, you know, it's about the quality of those followers. It's about the people who are following you and tweeting you and retweeting you, but again, the quality, because I don't know how many, you know, if you...
Well, this is it. I've been on Twitter with that account less than 2 years.
Yeah, Dixon, if you put ISOOSI in there, I think we've got like 9,500 over like 4 years, or you know, but
yeah,
because Amon's got a lot of greater influences, you know, linking to him, it just shows in that comparison.
Yeah, no, it's true. I won't put it in now because I feel I've probably pimped my tool enough, really.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the show, so you know, I think we're going to be kind of getting into the wrap up. I've got to say, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and I know that we could have talked for another 3 hours. In fact, let's do that just to keep you up, because you know, you put 2 shows.
Yeah, thanks. It's 4 minutes past 3 in the morning here. I'm so delighted. I've got to run a conference in 5 hours. I'm supposed to be on an expert round table at 3 o'clock this afternoon, which is, you know, about as far away from today as it can be. It's 12 hours away. I've got no chance, really. But if nothing else, it does demonstrate I can go through a night without getting drunk. No.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Now you've lost points, mate.
Yeah, see, that's worse than not having a category for porn. That's lost dock as well now.
I could forgive the porn aspect, but I'm sorry. Now we got a problem.
Exactly. You know, porn is problematic. You might end up spilling the drink.
Well, one quick question before we do wrap up that I did have is, you know, with all this talk of, you know, the move away from links, and you know, we've all heard it now for many years, well, last few especially, and
Yeah.
you know, there's things happen in the industry where it's like we're being, you know, even if that's not the case, we're being told it is the case, so that we stop, or folks stop kind of thinking about links as the be-all and end-all, which is, you know, from a marketing perspective is great. You know, we've had this discussion on a few of our hangouts about whether links will ever be, you know, diminished to the point where Yandex says like they don't use them, believe that or not. You know, it's like Danny Sullivan said, it's the fossil fuel. We can't get off it. Links will always be a signal. Are you in Majestic, again, without giving us too much information? Are you starting to kind of change those levels so that the links, surely the anchor text isn't, you know, as important now, and then you're bringing up social because you're bringing all those, you know, you've got the data. And you can see if social links are coming into a particular website. Are you giving them more weight?
Well, here's the thing. The answer is society is creating that more weight, because a link from a Twitter profile is still a link, you know, and our crawler could get to that link just as easily as it could get to a link on a web page. If everybody starts linking to a tweet that suddenly made the headlines, that's a bunch of links to a tweet, which itself is a link. So, I quite often do a thing with Barack Obama and do a search at the path level on his Twitter profile and show people what Barack Obama's most famous tweet was, for example. Social it's still web-based, and I think one of the really interesting things about the way that we deal with trust flow and topical trust flow is that it's not page-based, it's object-based, if you like. So one of the things that it could be useful for in PPC, for example, is when you're deciding how much to spend on all your banner ads around the world, it's not always easy when you're just taking the data from Google Google's data, because you don't have information about topical authority. So you could use topical trust flow in that context. But also, because we give a value between 0 and 100 of every URL, then you can compare different marketing channels. So you could have a look at all the Chrome extensions out there, for example, and all of those Chrome extensions on Chrome have a URL associated with them. They've got reviews which help you along the line, so you can see whether one Chrome extension is better than another Chrome extension from your point of view. And then you could use that, and you could maybe do your marketing through that Chrome extension. If 1 million people are using that Chrome extension, then maybe you want to get your message out through that Chrome extension as opposed to through a web ad. But how do you compare the value of that against talking to a Twitter follower or talking to getting an advert on Mashable? How can you compare all those different objects together? And topical trust flow is omnipresent. It's not URL specific. It's not just about getting links on pages. It's about URLs themselves and how valuable they are. And so it gives us a way to compare Google extensions with WordPress plugins, with Twitter profiles, with pages on blogs, or with pages on news articles, contextually and against each other within the same vertical. And I think that's a powerful data set, which I hope that somebody with a lot of computing power is going to take on board and say, right, I know what to do with that, and somebody's going to build some really powerful stuff which will take marketing itself onto the next level on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I do think, to an extent, Google may have shot itself in the foot a tiny bit with AdSense, because as we're starting to look more at, authority and trust and those kind of things, AdSense, which charges you exactly the same cost per click, whether it's appearing on Joe Blogs Down the Street's blog or salon.com, that is something we are going to have to start to question, and it's Google that's made us look at the difference. Do you think that this will be a thing that people will be using to steer their advertising better in future?
I hope so. And I think that it's going to be some of the large data platforms that can aggregate this information and coordinate it with the other data sources that they've got that will do this, because we haven't got the ability to return this data in 100th of a second fast enough to do it on the fly, which means that some big data source has got to say, right, we want this data on this many sites, pay us to do a custom extraction of the data. Maybe we can do that for them on a regular basis, so they've got a map of their own with which to blend with user data and other bits and pieces, and so they've got the ability to produce this data either on the fly, or at least allow you to modify your advertising dramatically by having another layer of understanding of what all of these web pages are about and whether you want to pay for an advert on here, because that context doesn't come out from what I've seen in AdWords. I don't do a lot of AdWords, but the more broad you get, the less they want to give you too much detail about the context. And if you've got your own layer of information that's independent, then you're certainly going to get an edge over the other people that are advertising for that bidding for that.
It's the one thing I'd like to see them start to do with publisher information. The rel equals publisher. I'd love to see them start to use this so that you can get a rough idea of scales of publisher quality and publisher trust, and then allow us to say, right, I don't want my AdWords on anything with a publisher trust rank under 5. And
if Google wanted me to, of course, help them with that information. Or because we've got it. It's at our fingertips, and so it's there, and it's not bad. And actually, I've yet to see that link for topical PageRank. People should have a look at what Matt Cutts said about that. I've yet to see that roll out, but I think that it'll be interesting when that does roll out, because clearly we get our flow metrics in a different methodology to Google, but it's aiming towards the same objective of creating categorization. And so presumably there would be a close proximity between their data. I'm not going to say they copy us, but you know, I hope that there's some kind of correlation. From the point of view of, I want our data to be corroborated as accurate. I mean, I think enough people now have looked at our topical cluster and said, yeah, bloody hell, that's good. But you know, I think that as Google moves towards that, it'd be interesting to see whether we've got insight that no one else has, and I think we have.
Dixon?
Well,
I'll count that as my wrap up. So, Bill, do you want a last comment?
My wrap up. All I'll say, Dixon, is make sure that you know they're not going to be able to scrape because you know what they do. But Bill, do you want a last word or a Doc before? I really got to thank Dixon for hanging a few minutes over here because it's probably about 3:30 a.m. But a quick wrap up, Bill or Doc?
A couple quick questions before we let him lapse into the Chinese night. A couple
now.
So we mentioned really quickly, briefly about link graph signals, and there are many others. There are mentions. There are things that could be looked at that would be interesting to see, especially in the context of your categories and so on. One of them that I find interesting is sentiment, and if there was a way to attach sentiment to some of these scores, some of these categories, some of these scores.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Yeah. I haven't got a good sentiment algorithm sitting at my fingertips, and you know what? When I look at the other ones around, they're not particularly good either. And I've looked at a fair few now, so I'm sure there's there's people knocking on our door saying, "Hey, we've got a sentiment algorithm. Want to buy it?" And
that's one of the things that we have to report on every month to about 3 or 4 Fortune 100, well, big clients, is sentiment analysis reports, and kind of telling them, look, these figures that we're quoting, you got to take them with a pinch of salt. It's all dependent on how many watchwords, what the watchwords are, how many of them, how accurate that database of watchwords are. And I've been really careful, but it's something that the bigger clients have been pushing for. They want to know how they're doing online in terms of social and how that brand is being perceived. And you do it over too short a period. There's so much, real big fluctuations, especially if the clients are doing kind of cross-promotional things with with sports teams. They get mentioned in a positive tweet there, and it's all skewed.
I really
totally
when we
agree
start
with
to
you.
need a sarcasm font as well, isn't it? Because something may look very positive and be completely the opposite in context.
Yeah.
That's for a whole new discussion, but I totally agree with you, Dixon. There's so much room there that can be for a tool, because there's nothing out there right now, and we must have tried about 10 or 11 tools.
So the one I'm using is and I've got no axe to grind with them either way. I'm using Sendable at the moment, sendable.com, and I quite like it. I've tried Tracker as well. I've tried loads of the darn things, but at least I can change it. I can go down the list and say, right, okay, that says red. It's red, yellow, or green kind of thing, or grey if they don't know. But at least I can go around and change it very quickly, and then change it. So if I was doing a report, and you can read it when it says, hey, this shit hot, you should go and look at this, and it says, right, it's shit, it's red, and then you can change it to green. So at least I can easily go around and change these things. But of course, that adds a cost to it all anyway. But I found that fairly useful, but not always accurate.
Cool.
Well, certainly from me, thanks for your time today, Dixon, because I think this has been tremendously interesting. Like, I could talk to you all day about the lessons you've learned building this tool.
Dixon, I tell you, your tool has been.
Carlos.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go on, Doc.
I was gonna say, Majestic has been a a favorite of mine and the only one that I was recommending for a couple of years now. But what I've learned today, you just jumped head and shoulders above everybody else. You know, this topical trust is, I think, just opens up so much. It's phenomenal. So
I think
kudos to
there's
you.
a couple of tools that are still worthwhile. I must admit, I still like SEMrush as well. But if you can only afford one, I've got to say, Majestic is the one.
Well, yeah, and no one tool is going to do our job for us. You know, you have to use two or three to get all the picture. But I would certainly say, from my standpoint, Majestic is the broadest potential of any tool out there.
Well, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Things like SEMrush and stuff. So, Doc, thanks ever so much. That was kind praise indeed, and I appreciate it. I think that we would sit there and say our two big people that we measure ourselves against are probably OpenSite Explorer and Ahrefs. And I think that from those two, I think it's fair. Topical Trust Flow is miles ahead now, and I'll say miles ahead. It's miles ahead in usefulness. So we've got all the things that OpenSite Explorer and Ahrefs have got, plus this extremely useful new data set. But we're not trying to do what Authority Labs are doing, or what Raven Tools are doing, or what SEMrush are doing. We're a different beast, and we've gone deeper into collecting and analyzing links. But we haven't got any ranked data at all. We haven't got any, sentiment analysis at all. You know, we're aspiring to be a database of the web that's a unique. We're a unique search engine. That's what we are. You know, and we're going to develop into more of an analytics data set than an SEO data set.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much, Dixon. I really appreciate you coming on today, and I'm sure I speak for everybody there. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in again, and we hope to see you. Thanks, Amon, Bill, and Doc, and again, Dixon, and we hope to see you again next Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, for another ISOOSI Chat Hangout. Thanks, everybody. Cheers, guys.
Dixon, one quick comment.